There are a couple of themes, more than a couple of themes, that we've noticed as we've been going through the tractate of Nazir. Themes that just keep on coming backwards and forwards through the tractate. One of them is language and precision and indeterminacy in language. So one is the power of language and the precision of language. Another theme that we've noticed is that the heroines or the heroes of this tractate, if they're named, they seem to be women. There are heroines rather than heroes in this tractate. So wherever it seems that whenever someone is picked out for an anecdote, it's a woman, and very often a woman who is concerned about her children or about her unborn children. So we've seen these women coming through the tractate. And finally, we felt the ambivalence of the rabbis as to whether being a Nazir is a good thing or not. We've really felt this ambivalence. And some of the examples we've seen have expressed quite a lot of doubt. So we're going to finish now bringing these themes together, actually with someone who is unquestionably a good example of a Nazir. And so the Mishnah concludes, this is the last Mishnah in the 9th chapter, the last Mishnah in the tractate. Nazir haya Shmuel. Samuel was a Nazir. So Samuel's the last of the judges, and he's the one that hands over to Saul, who's a bit of a failure, but hands eventually over to David. So Shmuel is the link between the end of the judges and the beginning of the kings. And he was a successful judge, and apparently, according to Rabbi Nehorai, he was a Nazir. Nazir haya Shmuel, ketivrei Rabbi Nehorai. Shmuel was a Nazir according to the words of Rabbi Nehorai. And now we're going to quote a verse. Shemar umora lo yale al rosho. A morah shall come upon his head. Now, this word morah, it's a very interesting word. It never occurs in Tanakh, except in this context. A morah shall not come upon his head. It's up twice, actually, in Tanakh, with regard to Shmuel and with regard to Shimshon. And of course, we know that Samson was a Nazir. And we know that Samson was a Nazir. And so we're going to deduce that Shmuel was a Nazir, but we don't really understand what this word, we don't have any context, any meaning for this word, other than that it seems from context to refer to a razor. Of course, the root, which is going to be Yud Resh He, or maybe Yud Resh Aleph, the root's very well known. So the root Yud Resh He, Yara, means to teach or to aim. So the word Torah, for example, teaching, comes from the same, and the word for teacher, Moreh, comes from this root, Yud Resh He. And the word for fear or awe, the root for fear or awe is Yud Resh Aleph. So Yirah, awe, or to fear, Yareh, are Yud Resh Aleph. And we'll see that the Mishnah is going to play with these words. And we'll see by the way, let's carry on and see how the Mishnah plays with these words. So Rabbi Nehorai quotes, Umorah lo yale al rosho. A morah shall not come on his head. And then we're going to quote Shimshon, Ne'emar b'Shimshon, it's said about Samson, morah, and a razor, v'ne'emar b'Shmuel, morah, ma morah b'Shimshon Nazir, af morah b'Shmuel Nazir. Just as morah in the case of Samson means Nazir, so morah in the case of Shmuel means Nazir. So the Morah has to refer to Nazir in both cases. Let's have a look at these verses. So the first verse, the first of these quotes is actually from Hannah. Remember, we mentioned that the active characters in this tractate of Nazir are very often women. And actually here we're referring, this is Hannah, who's childless, who goes to worship in Shiloh. She visits Eli the priest. She prays. By the way, her tefillah, the tefillah of Hannah at this point is the model for our shmonis, our tefillah 3 times a day. Our tefillah is modeled on the tefillah of Hannah. And she says, she prays for a son, and she says to God, if I have a son, Morah lo yale al rosho, no razor shall come upon his head. He's going to be dedicated to God. Unutativ lashem kol yemei chayav. I'm going to give him to God all the days of his life. Morah lo yale al rosho, and no razor shall come on his head. So it seems as though Shmuel is dedicated to God, and he's not going to shave. And he's connected, and this promise is connected with Hannah, the architect of our tefillah today. What about the second quote, the quote from Shimshon? Well, that is also, by the way, directed to a woman. And an angel comes to Shimshon's mother and says, Ki hinach hara v'yoladet ben, you shall conceive and you'll bear a son. Morah lo yale al rosho, and no razor shall come upon his head. And now we're going to have the definition of Nazir. Ki nazir el kim naziro him ye hanar min habaten, because he's going to be a Nazir of a God from the womb. Vehu yachel hoshia et Israel miyad plishtim, and he'll begin to save Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. And when the woman comes to speak to her husband, she says, well, this man of God came to me. And she then uses, interesting, she uses this root for all. Umarehu kamar'e malach, his sight, his appearance was like the appearance of an angel. Kamar'e malach ha'elokim, his appearance was like the appearance of an angel of God. Nora ma'od, awesome, very, very, very awesome. So the angel who comes to prophesy the birth of Samson, not only does he use the word morah, but he's very awesome. So let's just keep that in mind. And let's go back to the Mishnah now. So the verse says about Samson, morah, and we know that refers to Nazir because the text is explicit about Nazir, and the text says about Shmuel, morah, razor. And so we're going to deduce that just as Samson was a Nazir, so Shmuel was a Nazir. And Rabbi Yossi is going to object. Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, "V'halo ein morah ele shel basar v'dam." Surely morah refers to flesh and blood. And he means fear of flesh and blood now. He's using the word Yud Reish Aleph for Yirah or Norah. He's referring to that second root that Shimshon's mother mentioned. Surely fear refers to fear of flesh and blood, i.e., this prophecy means that Shmuel will never be afraid of a human being. Shmuel will be fearless. Amar lo Rabbi Nehorai. So Rabbi Nehorai is has a reply for this. Rabbi Nehorai says, no, we know that Shmuel was not fearless. He did have fear. V'halo kvar ne'emar, because we've got a verse to prove it. Vayomer Shmuel eich elech v'shema Shaul v'haragani. Shmuel said, how can I go? If Saul will hear it, he will kill me. This is the anointing of David. He's commanded to anoint David, and Shmuel objects that if Saul hears, he's going to kill me. Shekfar haya alav morah shel basar v'dam. Rabbi Nehorai says he did have fear of flesh and blood because he's afraid to go and anoint David. So if he does have fear of flesh and blood, when the verse says, Murah lo yaleh al rosho, when a murah shouldn't come on his head, we can't be talking about physical fear here. We must be talking about raising. And that means Shmuel, now we can therefore deduce that Shmuel was a Nazir. So out of all of our examples of ambivalence about, is a Nazir a good guy or a bad guy? Well, at least we hear once at the end of the tractate, and maybe this is the conclusion of the tractate, that it's possible for a Nazir to be unequivocally good, because Shmuel really was, the best of the Shoftim. The best of the judges. He anoints David, right? He's responsible for the beginning of the monarchy. So while we might be ambivalent about a Nazir in other contexts, we cannot be ambivalent about this particular Nazir. And it's with this example that we finish the tractate as a whole. Hadran alach Masechet Nazir will return to you, tractate Nazir. Vehadrach halam, and you will return to us. Da'atan alach Masechet Nazir, our mind is on you, tractate Nazir. Ve'da'atach alan, and your mind is on us. Lo nitnashei minach Masechet Nazir, we will not forget you, tractate Nazir. Ve'lo titnashei minach, and you won't forget us, tractate Nazir, and you won't be forgotten by us. Lo ba'alma hadain, velo ba'alma de'ati. Not in this world and not in the next world.